This one here, I put on the docket, didn't even tell you it was going to be here. And I'm calling it this or that. But it's funny how you brought up the Dan Campbell aggressiveness and Kyle Shanahan kind of conservative nature. Because that was the first question on this or that I was going to ask you. Not who do you prefer as a coach? Because I think we both agree Shanahan, right? But what do you prefer from your coach in these big moments? Do you prefer somebody who's loose and winging it and willing to go forward on a 4th and 4 in midfield? Or do you prefer the conservative, hey, let's just punt, let our defense do the thing? What do you like out of your coach? Do you like the loose nature of Campbell, or do you like to, hey, just keep things tight to the vest and we'll figure it out later, the way that Kyle Shanahan runs things? What do you prefer?
I love Dan Campbell. I think he's great for their team. Like,
For sure.
I want what Kyle Shanahan does. I think mitigating risk is key. I think it's led to a lot of success. And I understand that it's not always the sexiest thing. And if it doesn't work, it's easy to criticize, right? But to me, I think that it's the smart play. It's kind of like analytics, right? Like, you just focus on, hey, this is what we think is going to work. And unless something drastically has changed, like we stick to this, because if the formula is still there, eventually this formula will work. So to me, I'm with Shanahan, just because ultimately, like, maybe I'm also thinking about it because I don't think he has that in him, nor do I think he needs that. Like, I think if he tried to start doing that, it would lead to more problems than if he just stuck with what he knows right now.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I will say, watching Dan Campbell and not being a Lion fan, I love to watch that style. I love him going forward on the 4th downs. I love the 2-point conversions. Now, there was a point, like the Dallas game, once you got the penalty called against you, I hated going for it. I thought that was dumb. And then you got another penalty that went your way, and then to go for it again, it's like there's no way you have 3 great 2-point conversion calls dialed up for this game. It's just, I don't believe it. So it's sometimes it can go too far, but man, when you're watching a game and you see the fake punt or you see 4th and 4 or whatever, and they're going for it, I love that as a fan. I prefer to watch that. That being said, for my team,
exactly.
I'd get a little bit nervous in those moments, man, because it really, in those moments, as awesome as it can be and as elated as you can feel when you convert. Ooh, if you don't, it's one of those moments that you look back on. Yeah.
It's great when it goes well. It's fun when it goes well. It's like, the Philly special and all these things. They're great.
Yeah.
Like, they're moments if they work. If you get stopped, like Seattle when they did the Russ versus giving it to Marshawn Lynch, it didn't work. That was more feeling over what, like, the game plan would be, like, just run it, right? 1 yard in, just run it. But the feeling is like, hey, let's pass the ball. They're probably not going to expect it, all that kind of stuff. It didn't work. And now that kind of blew up that team. That one play made it where Sherman and all the Legion of Boom, all that, like, it blew up the team. So, like I said, it's easy in the moment to be like, if he would have done this, if he would have done that, but you never know how those things actually play out.
Well, Joseph pushes back and says Ben Johnson said he had 22 2-point conversion plays in his folder. So how many did he have from the 7-yard line? How many 2-point conversion plays did he have dialed up from the 7? I'm going to say none is my guess out of those 22. And clearly he had one that he liked better because that's what they went with to start. And by the time they got to play number 3, guess what? They were throwing 2 yards short of the end zone. That was the best play they had, their third best play. So I can't even imagine how awesome 22 would have been, because number 3 wasn't great. So at some point, you just got to be willing to say, hey, it didn't work. We got to move on. I loved the first one. Going for the win on the road. Absolutely loved it. But once you get to the 7-yard line after a penalty, I'm sorry, you lost me there. You lost me there. So there is times to kind of rein it back in my opinion. Okay. All right, I got another one for you. So again, not Purdy versus Goff, because I think we're going to agree Purdy. Okay. But would you prefer in these moments, unnamed quarterback, would you prefer that your quarterback has years of experience going through it, whether successful or unsuccessful, like Jared Goff, or kind of that youthful bliss of not necessarily knowing how big the moment is and just being able to be ballsy and gut through it a little bit? It's just interesting because really, I look at Goff almost the way that we just laid out Shanahan, and I look at Purdy and his youthfulness and his vibrance as kind of Dan Campbell, like playing a loose gunslinger type, not a lot to worry about. Who cares? It's year 2. I didn't have much to go through. What would you prefer in this moment? Do you prefer that youthfulness, or do you prefer that kind of years of experience going into this moment?
Yeah, and once again, I think this is going to be specific to the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if this was an extremely young team that didn't have a lot of experience and didn't have a lot of leadership and the talent that they have and the heartbreaks that they've had, so on and so forth, I would probably, if it was more like the Detroit Lions, right? I would want, if I was the Detroit Lions, I would want that experience and that level-headed, like, hey, this is what to expect. This is how it goes, blah, 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 blah. For this team, I want the upside. I want the gunslinger. I want the person that isn't jaded. I want the person that might be too naive to know, hey, you're not supposed to make this pass, right? Because the ceiling could be so much higher when you're not overthinking things, right? So to me, that I want that paired with what the surrounding pieces are. To me, I'd want that youthful kind of, hey, I don't we win. I'm just going to make the throw because I trust that it's going to happen. I haven't seen anything else for me to hesitate.
Yeah. Man, this one's tough too, because like I said, if it's just player for player, give me Purdy, obviously. But this one category, it's just the comfortability, I guess, of knowing that you've got a guy that has been there and made it to a Super Bowl and won in these moments. Not that the other player can't do it, right, or won't do it, but just knowing that you have a player that has done it, I feel very comfortable with that. So I think people are learning a lot about me, right? As much as I enjoy watching gunslingers and big time arms and all these other things, in nature, I'm kind of conservative when it comes to how I want my team to be.
You're fake.
There we go.
You got me out here on a limb talking about, hey, I'm the Stan, I'm this, I'm that. Chat's going at my throat, and over here, deep down inside,
I like
Jesse's
the
really everything.
man. I'm going safety. I'm taking the safety. So,
but you want to complain
prefer,
when it doesn't work.
I prefer the experience. So I'm going to go there. Now I'm going to ask you a straight up one, and then we'll be done.
All right.
This is just straight up. Brandon Ayuk or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
That's a brutal one, man, because Amon is that dude.
I know.
This is
such a tough question, bro.
That's a good one. But once again, I'm doing it in the perspective of the 49ers, right? Doing it of the perspective of the 49ers. And the blocking of Brandon Ayuk and what he needs to be in this, route running, hands, speed, all those types of things. You could edge it either way, right? I don't think Amon St. Brown is the number one option on their team. He gets way more opportunities than Brandon Ayuk does. And I've already on previous shows talked about if Brandon Ayuk got more opportunity, his numbers would be he'd be the number one receiver in the league in my opinion. If he got the same amount of targets as the number one receivers are, he would be that. So I'm taking Brandon Ayuk because I do think that if he was placed in the Lions offense and given all the targets that St. Brown does, he would be that, plus he has that physicality that I think St. Brown doesn't have, that I like in my receivers.